My wife and I are fortunate enough to live in a fairly new home. As it was being built, we had network cables installed to most of the rooms in the house so we could have a fast, reliable, hardwired home network. All of the network cables terminate in our mudroom, and I've placed a network switch here to connect all of the rooms in the house to our router. The router is in another location in the house because of how we had to bring the fiber optic cable into our house when fiber came available in our area last year, but that is neither here nor there. The problem I want to deal with today is getting all these cables labeled so we'll know from now on which cable goes to which room, because since moving into our house, we've had no idea which network cable goes where. Yes, we have a 16 port switch here and only 8 cables going to different places in the house, so I know every room is connected to the network. But in the event I ever want or need to know which cable goes to which room, labeling them now is going to make it super easy for us to be able to tell. So I first looked at just buying some labels online, but I didn't like the tab style ones like these. First and foremost, I think they look freaking ugly. And I also feel these can be easily ripped off, and then once again, you don't know what cable goes where. So I kept looking. It didn't take long though before I found these labels that wrap around the cable itself, which personally I like much more. But just looking at them, I felt I could replicate this myself for much less money. So I grabbed a roll of packaging tape we had lying around and loaded up Photoshop to see if my idea would work. I first measured the roll of tape and found it to be 1 7/8 inches wide. So now if I make my labels 1.5 inches wide, then that would leave 3/16 of an inch on either side to stick to the cable. I then cut a strip of paper and wrapped it around a spare network cable I had lying around, marked the paper when it wrapped all the way around the cable, measured it, and found it takes about 3/4 of an inch to wrap all the way around a standard network cable. These measurements then became the basis of my label template. I then created a new document in Photoshop and set the width at 1.5 inches and the height at 3/4 of an inch, and set the DPI to 300. To help with cutting out my labels once they were printed, I first changed this canvas to black, then pressed Ctrl A to select the entire document, and then shrunk my selection by 2 pixels. Grabbed my paint bucket tool here and filled it in the selected area with white. Now I have a nice line defining the edges of my label. Next I used the text tool here to create a text box and typed in the name of one of the rooms in my house. I then set the font to one I like and changed the size of the font so that it nicely fit on my label. At this point, if you really want to customize things and want something other than a plain white background, feel free to put any image or whatever else you want in the background. As for me, I'm happy with plain white, so let's move to the next step. I then created a new document and used Photoshop's US paper preset for a standard 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, making sure the resolution was set to 300 DPI, just like my label. I then copied my little label onto this sheet of paper, and then copied it several more times and arranged them to make them simple to cut out. I then changed the text so I had a label for each room in our house. At that point, it was time to print it up and cut the labels out. I grabbed my roll of packaging tape and, after a little trial and error, found my technique for cutting it to make my labels. I placed a tape measure on my desk and locked it in place with several inches of it protruding out. I then stuck the edge of the tape on my desk like so, lined the 3-inch mark of my tape measure with the edge of the packaging tape, and then measured back 1 7/8 inches and cut it. I then did my very best to center the piece of tape over one of the labels, stuck them together, and then wrapped this around the corresponding cable. I repeated this process until all my cables were nicely and neatly labeled. Now you may be thinking, wait a minute, how did you find out which cable goes to which room? Well, that was actually pretty simple, although it was a bit time consuming. I first unplugged all the cables from my network switch except the one that connects to our router, and then plugged my laptop into one of the network ports in one of the other rooms in our house. I would then go back to the switch and plug in one cable at a time and check to see if the laptop was connected to the network or not. Once it connected, I would place the label for that room on that cable and then move the laptop to the next room and repeat the process. Okay, so that does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, or at the very least, hope it sparks some ideas for you. There's those YouTube things I'm sure you are aware of you can do that help out a lot. And if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, I have an Amazon store I've linked in the video description where you can purchase items I've featured in past videos. I hope you have a great day, and maybe I'll see you again soon in another video. All right, we'll catch you later.